when you walk with open arms towards the sun. You feel the warmth of the rays, and then you know you're alive, and you don't have to be afraid of anything, cause you know the truth, and the truth is love, yes it is. Wasn't what they said to you, or anything that you learned from a book.
Welcome to the Bassline. Dr. David Jeremiah Speicher is a microbiologist, a researcher and author of numerous articles and papers, and a right side of history scientist. Here to talk about the horror story that is plasmid DNA contamination, along with other important topics, is the brilliant Dr. David Speicher. How are you this afternoon, Dr. Speicher?
Hey, it is so nice to be here, Jeremiah.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you, my friend. We want to dive right into the heart of the matter here. There's a lot to talk about, but I want to get right into this terrifying topic that is plasmid DNA contamination. And I've heard about this for a while, and it seemed rather alarming and concerning when it first came about. And then I guess I had a misimpression of the situation, that I thought it would be clearer what the effects of all of this were within a matter of months, that the scientists would just kind of get to the bottom of this and say, this is what the deal is. But now it's been quite some time, and it seems like there's massive concern around this plasmid DNA contamination issue, but that the full scope of it is still not perfectly clear. Could you help just sort of orient us and get us in the ballpark about this issue of the COVID vaccines in quotes, being contaminated with plasmid DNA?
So we've heard lots of things. We've heard harms and issues with the lipid nanoparticles and spike, and this whole new aspect of the DNA and the SV4 sequences compounds things even further. It's very difficult to tell. Am I suffering because of spike or the LNPs or the DNA? We do know without a doubt these are gene therapies. The plasmid used in the Pfizer vaccine is directly out of Pfizer's Department of Gene Therapy, and it was picked to grow up these things in mammalian cells. We know in the 1999 David Dean's work, if you take simply a DNA fragment attached to a 72 base pair SV40 enhancer, insert it into a non-dividing cell, and 3 to 10 copies of those into a non-dividing cell, it can move across the nuclear envelope, insert itself into the cellular DNA. And in the vaccines, we have about 500 billion of these in lipid nanoparticles being injected into cells throughout our body. and it's very difficult to know exactly which cells these things are being picked up in and integrated into. We do know in the Yale study, some folk express spike over 704 days post-vax. So it is causing harm. Rates of cancer are going up. And we as scientists and physicians must look into this further.
Right. So could you give us an idea from your perspective, how do you think the plasmid DNA contamination is factoring into the vaccine death and injury that we've witnessed? Because there's, the concern concerning mRNA. First of all,
Yep.
There's the concern pertaining to the lipid nanoparticle delivery system, and now we have the trifecta with the plasmid DNA contamination. Could you give us your ideas in terms of some of the concerns in terms of just the damage that we've already witnessed? How much do you think the plasmid DNA issue might have factored into that?
So it's no longer a hypothetical fear. Our work has shown that all of the mRNA COVID vaccines contain DNA levels far above the legal regulatory limits. These limits are for naked DNA, which quickly and readily break down once injected into our body. As these are encapsulated into lipid nanoparticles, that sort of thing is not occurring. They are not breaking down, and they are being injected into our cells and are, of course, leading to the harm caused. Essentially, the manufacturers skipped long-term integration studies, and this means the global population is currently serving as a clinical trial, and the effects of the harms caused by these injections, I don't think, will be fully understood in our own lifetime.
Wow. So when we say that this can have intergenerational effects, what are we talking about? Are we talking about children who have not necessarily received COVID injections inheriting this ability to produce spike protein at a cellular level because of their parents receiving the injections? I mean, that's just off the top of the head, of course, a non-scientist here. What do we mean when we say this could play out over generations? What might that look like, or what are the primary concerns there?
Well, our largest unknown is this DNA inserted into germline cells, and so sperm cells and egg cells. If they are in a sperm cell, and that sperm makes meets a egg, fertilizes it, and makes a viable offspring. Every cell in that child's body could potentially have the code to make spike. And that's in every cell.
Wow.
So we must urgently look at germline cells and see, is this going on? It's basically research that our own governments don't really want done. We've always been told from our governments that these shots have not and will not change our own genomes. Well, if that has occurred just for a simple respiratory virus, the lifelong and long-term effects of these could be completely unknown.
Wow. Yeah, it's so hard to imagine from a layperson's point of view how the human body can even stand being tampered with in this way. I mean, I see so much vaccine injury and death. And at the same time, I mean, it's amazing to me that people who have received even multiple boosters are just walking around and haven't just been outright mutated right before our eyes. I mean, how durable the human species is to even be tampered with in this way. I want to pause quickly because I want to, first of all, I want to invite you guys to call. We have a microbiologist on the air, and if you have any particular questions, we'd love to hear from you. The number here, of course, is 888-874-4888. Give us a call and get in the queue. And I'm going to mention here a few ways that you can support this program. This is independent journalism, and there are a number of ways you can support the efforts here. First of all, of course, we are an affiliate with frontierpharm.com. That's farm with a PH, FRONTIERPHARM.com. And the discount code is the Bassline. Please make use of that discount code. It's an incredible array of products. Check out the toothpaste. Check out the mouthwash. Check out the skincare and the number of great products that are over there at frontierpharm.com. Second of all, we have IPTV television, and it's the most incredible television system in the world. I'm trying to tell you, you don't have to miss any sporting events. You can watch news all around the world. You can watch television in any country, which is just phenomenal for an unbelievably good price. And that's private IPTV access.com, and the code is Hosea, capital J, capital HOSEA. Please, if you haven't already, please immediately subscribe to my Substack, jeremiahhosea.substack.com, or just search for Jeremiah Hosea at substack.com. and I just published a new article called Circles, Volume 1. Please check out my new article, give it a like, give it a share. Please share it with other concerned citizens. You can buy my music, including the theme song for this show, at jeremiahhosea.com. And then, of course, I'm a chess teacher, so please contact me for a chess lesson. I've had the privilege of teaching a few PRN listeners some chess, and I'd love to do a whole lot more. It's an incredible game, not just the game itself, which is just an elegant and thrilling game, but it is proven to help with your brain health, actually. It's a good investment in your health. So add chess to your health regimen. You'll notice the difference if you invest a little time in the game of kings and the king of games. But back to our conversation here. Dr. Speicher, could you just give us a little bit of your backstory as it pertains to the COVID battle? I mean, I've spoken to many doctors and scientists and, lawyers and activists and different people, but particularly a lot of doctors and scientists, and everyone sort of has their own story, of course, and people were sort of situated in different ways leading up to this event. I mean, I have people who were really anticipating a medical tyranny sort of event for a long time and were not surprised at all as everything was sort of set into motion. I have a lot of people I've spoken to who really got sort of politicized through these events. I have people who were not per se anti-vaxxers in the first place, but they're anti-vaxxers now, or at least have stated moratorium on all vaccines until the regulatory process is cleaned up and until this whole element of medical tyranny is put in check. There's all these different sort of positions that people found themselves in as these events were unfolding. How would you describe your sort of COVID backstory?
So I am not a conspiracy theorist. I have a PhD in molecular virology. I've worked in Australia, India, Africa, Asia, on a wide range of infectious diseases, and I remember living and working through the 2003 SARS-1 outbreak, and so I've always let the scientific evidence guide my path. I worked for 2016 to 2012 at McMaster University here in Canada on viruses. And when this pandemic first emerged, we were primed and there. I worked on the team which first isolated the virus at U of T, helped paying out them, and I just made careful observations, asked difficult things about the lab leak, the gain of function work, And I'm like, if this is such a bad thing, why are our airports and stuff still open and we're allowing all kinds of people back from the infectious area in China? And I was told, oh, I'm being a fearmonger and stuff. And I was first sidelined and under investigation March 17th. And it was trumped up things. It was to take myself off of the team working on SARS-2 because they were afraid of that I would not go along with the narrative. And at that time, I learned fast, challenge everything you know based on what you are seeing, and that this whole censorship of scientists and doctors was a real thing, and we didn't know this until this pandemic and the vaccines were rolled out. In 21, I had a Pfizer rep approach us and say there's something not right about that vaccine. I would wait 12 months and then decide to get this or not. And I knew in the first 4 that this was not working like they said. There were all kinds of people with adverse events early on, and it was clear very fast that something nefarious was going on. And so I had a choice. I could follow what the government was saying and what my colleagues were basically parroting, or I could follow the evidence and the facts of what was actually going on scientifically. I've seen vaccine injured, and I could either speak up and help them and get sidelined for it, or I could comfortably follow along and get paid. And as a man of faith, I had to follow the science and do what was right.
Absolutely. We actually do have a caller on the line, and I'd like to welcome Loretta to the program. How are you, Loretta? Thanks for calling.
Hi, Loretta.
Oh, hi, Jeremiah. Great information as always. Always the truth, wisdom, and knowledge on your show. Real grateful for that.
Thank you.
And yeah, the human body is definitely resilient. They've been trying to feed us toxins through our foods, our water for, decades. And that wasn't enough for them. So they had to personally inject the anatomy and physiology of people. Yeah. But I kind of compare it to like a river that's been polluted by an industrial situation, the factories, how they polluted the Blackstone River, for instance. And once they removed the pollutants, naturally the rivers came back to life because they are resilient and they're, still connected to the earth, which has a lot of life in it of itself. And I feel like, us as human beings have a lot of life in ourselves in order to heal from these adverse chemicals. But the more and more they do, the worse and worse it becomes, and the harder and more challenging it is to stay healthy in this world full of this kind of thing. I was reading locally in a paper today, they want to build a big data center in the middle of a rural area here in Rhode Island, and people are rightly concerned. And the legislative people are just, saying on one side of their face that they're concerned too because there's not enough research and data on it. Well, naturally, because this is all new, and skeptical, but yet they're all looking at the financial gain of it. So we're in a battle of our life. I'm thankful for doctors like you, sir, that share this truth, and hopefully by sharing truth, we can help people avoid things like vaccinating their children and perhaps growing their own organic foods and buying their meats from great farmers, Amish farmers. But yeah, we're definitely in a battle for our life every day. So I just wanted to thank you, sir, for sharing your truth. And it's just devastating that the people that are in the medical field that are trying to help and heal people had to all of a sudden learn all of these things in a very harsh way. So my prayers are with you, and my prayers are always with you too, Jeremiah. I love you.
Love you
and,
too.
You guys take care.
Thank you so much for calling.
Thank you so much, Loretta.
Hello?
Yeah. Thank you, Loretta. We appreciate your call very much. I would love to ask you to expand the conversation a little bit, Dr. Speicher, in terms of what are your thoughts about vaccination writ large. I mean, I'll tell you personally, I started out this show and I made it clear to the listeners that I did not identify myself as an anti-vaxxer. And after hearing a certain number of guests, I said, you know what? I'm like an anti-vaxxer now, come to think about it, based on what I've learned. And at this point, I consider myself a vaccine abolitionist, particularly because of, all data aside, to me, the strongest point of evidence is hearing firsthand from parents that their children were destroyed by these shots. And it's not just one or two sets of parents. We're talking about thousands of people in the United States, and I'm sure many, many more around the world can give firsthand testimonies to the fact that their children were doing great. They received their so-called routine injections, and either that night or the following day were just diminished as human beings, that they had regressed almost immediately upon receiving these shots. There's so many of those stories that I think that there's something really corrupt about a system that would try to sweep that under the rug. But where do you stand? I just read your excellent Substack about the vaccine mandates in Canada that you've been dealing with as a parent. And I just wonder, what are your thoughts about vaccination as a practice writ large?
So I am not a anti-vax, anti-science person. I am a scientist against anything that has been rushed, mandated on people, and caused people harm. And we've seen over time that the vaccines could have had some help. At the same time, we've seen and know that the vaccines also can cause harm. and I'm quite shocked and disappointed that the entire establishment is going at this in a way to defend the whole thing of vaccines at all cost, will not look at the data, sweeps things under the rug, and we're at a point where we must reevaluate things in the past and work out, are these things actually doing good, or are they actually causing people more harm than good? And the whole autism thing is basically like that. We've seen autistic rates going up, and we must have basically all hands on deck to find out why this is going up and what can be done to stop this. Here in Canada for the past 2 months, children attending school, if you have not declared or shown your vaccine status or a valid exemption, are being suspended for up to 20 days. Now, it's not a actual health risk at all. It's a perceived health risk, and it's a issue of compliance to our government mandates and reporting system, and not about someone's actual health. And so, on the same time, I did discuss this with the infectious disease department at Public Health. And if a child is HIV positive or hepatitis B or C positive and gets in a fight and there's blood all over, there is no one at that school who knows about the child's HIV status at all, and therefore, in the actual health risk, public health is doing absolutely nothing unless there's a incident and someone is hurt and has a positive HIV test result, and then they will look into it. And so, in an actual health risk, they're basically doing nothing. In a perceived vaccine compliance thing, our children are being suspended up to 20 days. And this is the same sort of punishment if you're in a big fight, cyber bullying and stuff. And in actual fact, these kids have done nothing wrong, and their own education is being used as pawns to force parents to comply.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely about control and not motivated by public health. And I guess I'd like you to go into that a little bit further in terms of, I find that to be a dubious claim that you have received an effective medical intervention in the form of a vaccine, but your vaccine fails to work because I did not comply with the same mandate. How do they get away with sort of perpetuating that argument? It's like the analogy that I use is like, if I own a fancy sports car, like a Ferrari, do I not own my Ferrari if you don't own one? Or do I not own my house if you don't have a house? Or, you could supplant whatever you want in that analogy. It's like, what other product have I ever heard of where you don't have it unless somebody else has it?
Well, I find as well that it's really sad that they are saying if you aren't vaxxed, you are putting other people at risk, when in the actual facts you're shoving yourself at risk for a disease which is not very common. If we look at measles, mumps, polio, those things are rare. Yes, there are some outbreaks, except in that situation, you're putting yourself at risk and not someone else. And it's like, well, what are their vaccines actually doing for them if you think these people are actually causing other people harm?
Right. In terms of even some of the what they call the tried and true vaccines, like polio, for instance, I mean, what would you estimate is the actual risk of someone not being vaccinated for polio if you have, for example, a healthy young child who resides in, let's say, New York City or Toronto? They sleep well, they eat well, they live in a hygienic environment. I mean, are they at serious risk of randomly contracting polio in their everyday life? What would you say about that?
Well, that's a very, very interesting thing. If you look at data in the North America, If you look at measles, mumps, there's less than 90 cases per year, and so the risk to you is way less than 1%. So you're basically doing this for a slim risk to push what we think is the best thing, and it doesn't negate all of those who have been vaccine injured. The whole thing. If we look just at the polio vaccine in sub-Saharan Africa in 2017, the oral polio vaccine derived polio surpassed wild type, and therefore most of the polio seen in the African subcontinent is basically all vaccine derived.
Wow. And there's so little regard for that, it seems. Just like, oh, well. And that's why I've taken to the term the military, medical, industrial complex, because it seems like if you fall victim to any of these interventions or procedures, you're more or less written off like collateral damage on a battlefield.
Yeah.
And what would you go ahead? Sorry.
And at the same time, I'm very much concerned about the whole new up and coming wave of vaccines. Most of those are mRNA based or are self-amplifying or self-replicating RNA. And so these types were first used in Japan last fall and had an adverse event rate of 89% when they rolled them out.
Wow. So let me ask you, Dr. Speicher, in terms of the adjuvants and the content of vaccines. I've heard many doctors by now express concerns and more than concerns, the outright statement that these adjuvants and contaminated cell lines and some of these various things that can be found in these injections are the source of a lot of our mysterious health problems that appear at different phases in life, where you go to the doctor and they say, oh, you have a new problem and it's pretty serious and you're going to need medication or you're going to need some kind of treatment, but we don't know actually why you have this problem specifically. They'll say, well, it could be environmental, could be genetic, could be from stress, and there are people saying, no, it's from the content of your childhood vaccines that have sort of seeded your body for these long-term health problems. Is that something that you think is valid, or would you share in some of the concern that these ingredients can result in, if not acute problems, long-term problems that are even seen way down the road?
And the thing is scientifically possible, and I think for scientific transparency, that all of these things need to be looked at. At the same point, we have zero evidence that they aren't causing people harms, and they might be causing people harm, and we must look at these things. At the same time, to be vaxxed or not as a personal, private choice, and no one should be discriminated against for their own personal, private choice.
Right. And are you familiar with the recent documentary, An Inconvenient Study, and some of these recent studies showing that unvaccinated children are healthier than vaccinated children? What are your thoughts on that?
Sure am. When my son was suspended last month for undisclosed vaccine status, the first day home, him and I watched it, and he is only 11, and he said, "Dad, the vaccines have caused some good. At the same time, that they have caused harm and haven't been scientifically looked at right, and we need to be careful and definitely look at things further."
Right.
So if an 11-year-old can look at the data and say that, why are our governments saying these things are perfectly safe and effective 100% of the time when the data isn't there? And the mRNA vaccines, they are safe and effective. They are safe in the vials, and they are effective at causing people harm.
Yeah. I'd say they should be effectively put in the garbage at this point, considering what we've seen and what we know by now. So we have not too much time left here. We have a little more than 5 minutes. I want to make sure that everyone is perfectly clear on how they can follow your work. So if you could please give us a rundown. I'm looking right now at your Substack. It's Courageous Truth. So please look up Courageous Truth on Substack. That's at Dr. David Speicher. That's Speicher. Please subscribe to Dr. Speicher on Substack. And where else can people find your work or read your publications?
I am also on X at DJ Speicher, Speicher, and Substack. And if you could follow, and so support the science, it would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah.
Because this is one big fight, and I can only keep on going, knowing that I've got a army that is backing me up.
Yeah, I feel the same way. And yeah, folks, I'm finding with this medical freedom, health freedom struggle that we're engaged in, which I tie into sort of a larger struggle against powerful tyrannical elements in our world, I think that, it's really important that people find their second wind, because there were a lot of people who were sort of hotly involved in the activism when the COVID event was happening, who have sort of faded out of the picture as of now. And I could think of many reasons why that would be. But these issues have not been resolved, and we really need more hands on deck, and we need people speaking up and sharing the information and using their own creativity to figure out how to amplify this conversation. We really cannot allow this to become just a fringe discussion where the mainstream is promoting basically medical tyranny and turning our planet into an open air trial where we're all subject to being sacrificed in this sort of experimental project that they've delineated for us. We need to hunker down and support the voices that are speaking out and providing information, such as Dr. Speicher. I strongly recommend, again, go to his Substack. There's a ton of great articles there, and it's information that you can really empower yourself with and share with others to have a better grasp of some of the technicalities of what we're facing here. And actually tonight, I need to mention, of course, we're going to have the Bassline Extra on X, and we're going to continue this discussion about plasmid DNA contamination. I'm not sure if you can join us at some point, Dr. Speicher, if you're available at all this evening, but we'll be on from 9 to midnight. So if you could join us for a little bit, I'm sure the community would love to hear from you. And what are you, as we close out here, what are you working on immediately, Dr. Speicher? What's next for you?
Well, I've just launched a scientific consulting and advising and testing company called Cyrus Scientific. I am its chief scientific officer, and our next research is to look at sperm and egg cells to see, is this DNA integrated into those cells and being passed on to the next generation.
Wow. Sounds like powerful work there indeed, and important work. So we'll be on tonight, End All Tyranny. Look me up at Earth Driver on X. We go on at 9 p.m. Eastern, and we'll be talking for a few hours. So please join us this evening. I want to thank all the listeners for tuning in, and I want to thank you, Dr. Speicher. I really appreciate you taking the time to be here, and I commend you for all of your outstanding work. And everyone have a great rest of your day. Hopefully you can tune in this evening, and we will resume next week. We have another great guest lined up. Becca Joyce will be joining us. So have a great rest of your day. Talk to you soon, everyone. Peace and love.
Thank you so much.